McLeod and Britt helps both large corporations and small businesses with insurance, risk management, and employee benefits using the same values they've held true for over 30 years: knowledge, vision, accountability, and service. More information is at bmbinc.com.
Hello, I'm Marcia Cavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, during this, a busy parade week, the only mention of a rainy day was about the state's emergency fund. We'll look tonight at the legislature's effort to manage a budget crisis. We'll also examine the latest in a local bank's woes, as well as what the sale of Popeyes might mean to the chicken chain. This being the season, we'll get a peek at two crews that specialize in satire. There have been no laughs at recent congressional town hall meetings, which have become contentious. We'll examine why. And a local action reporter has had some personal action by deciding to retire. We'll hear some of his recollections. In the action for us are tonight's Informed Sources. Errol Laborde, producer of Informed Sources. Tyler Bridges, reporter, the New Orleans Advocate, and co-author of the book Long Shot about the 2015 Louisiana governor's race. Kathy Finn, freelance business journalist and author of a book about Tom Benson. And Bill Capo, reporter, WWL-TV, Channel 4. And we're going to go first over to Tyler because we just wrapped up a special session with the legislature trying to deal with a budget crisis. And it seems like, dare I say the word compromise was worked out?
Yeah, well, the state's had chronic budget problems really going back to the Bobby Jindal years, and over the last 9 years there have been 15 different mid-year budget cuts, and they faced a problem this year that this is called a mid-year budget cut because the fiscal year ends at the end of June, and they had a $304 million deficit. The state was on target to spend $304 million, and it was collecting. So they had to meet for 9 days in Baton Rouge. And as you said, they ultimately did work out a compromise, one that the Republicans and the Democrats came together with the governor on.
And so what is this compromise? What kind of money was going to have to be drawn from where to plug this hole?
The big question was the state's rainy day fund. It has $360 million. The governor wanted to take about one third of that, the maximum allowed, to plug the hole. The conservatives in the House, not the Senate. The Senate is also controlled by the Republicans, but the Senate Republicans were in favor of the plan, but the conservatives in the House were not. They screamed and dragged their feet, and in the end, they agreed to $99 million from the rainy day fund. So the governor got about 83% of what he was seeking, and then they pulled money from other sources to close this budget deficit. But there's another budget deficit and more budget problems ahead.
Right, just the next day they have to start dealing with that for the regular session that starts in April. But in filling up this deficit for this current fiscal year, who's getting the worst cuts?
Yeah, it's really the agency, the Louisiana Department of Hospitals, of Health, that serves particularly the elderly and poor children. They got cuts, and then the hospitals that have been privatized, the management of, they're going to get, I think, about a 1% cut as well. In the end, the state's colleges and universities were spared, so was the prison system. The K through 12 schools were spared as well.
TOPS was also nothing
TOPS
done
is
to
okay,
TOPS.
although TOPS is facing cuts in the future.
And so the future, okay, so we've just filled up this hole and drawing some from the rainy day fund. But what is the future looking like? What kind of deficit are we facing for the next fiscal year?
Right, so the conservatives in the House who did not want to take any money from the rainy day fund said, hey, this is one-time money. This is what John Bell Edwards and a lot of people complained about at the end of Bobby Jindal's term, that they were taking money to spend for yearly programs that the money wouldn't be available for the next year, and someday that would be a big problem. In fact, that's what particularly happened last year, but it has continued. So the governor said, hey, it's late in the fiscal year, not much time left, we got to use this money. But he has presented a budget on Thursday that says he can't fully fund TOPS, he can't do anything about the problems with all the roads There's all sorts of what's called deferred maintenance at states, colleges, and universities. Billions of dollars there they can't do to fix new buildings, fix up roofs and leaky roofs and those sorts of things. So there really is just all sorts of problems. But the conservatives in the House say government spends too much money, so we should not be raising taxes. So that all will come into a head in April, and so we'll have plenty to talk about in the coming weeks.
So is the governor calling for more cuts then?
He is, yeah, because right now he's not calling for tax increases. So without more revenue, TOPS is going to face more cuts, and all sorts of programs that want more money, including these public-private partnerships. The hospitals are facing more cuts as well.
Yeah, they're not going to be happy about that, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, the state has had chronic budget deficits going back to the Jindal years. John Bel Edwards in his first year made progress, and now in his second year, he's facing more. And so the big issue will be in the legislature when the question of tax reform will be on the agenda to make long-term changes to the state's fiscal situation.
Tyler, what has to happen for the state to get out of this hole? Is this going to be like the future? Every year we're hearing about special sessions for short-term remedies? Or?
Yeah, well, the problems really happened, as I mentioned, during the Jindal years, and the legislature, against the advice of a lot of people, made a big tax cut. And really the state's budget has had budget problems since then. The conservatives say the state spends too much money. There's actually been a lot of budget cuts since over the Jindal years and the first year of John Bel Edwards. The increase in spending by the state government is really money that the state government is getting from the federal government, particularly for the poor. But simply put, the legislature has to decide to spend more, to reduce spending, which legislators say they want to do, but they don't want to do because it starts hurting people, or they're going to have to raise more revenue. And the public doesn't like that either.
Right, so hard decisions facing the legislature again, starting April 1st.
Yeah, and the legislature keeps making short-term decisions just to get through the year. So this really seems to be the year when the legislature is going to have to make a big decision, or it's just going to be a real mess in the future.
And there's one more variable, the price of oil going up.
Yeah, well, that will solve some short-term problems, but there's just been a chronic mismatch between revenue and spending in the last few years.
Okay, all righty, Tyler. Thanks. It's going to go over to Errol. And Senator Cassidy had town hall. Representative Scalise was supposed to have a teletown hall. That was today, although the wrong phone number was first given out. But Senator Cassidy really heard a lot from voters in the Metairie town hall this week. You know,
in a democracy, there's nothing that sounds more wholesome than having a town hall meeting where your elected representative comes and the people get together and they share ideas and they ask questions. And it's just really, it's a concept of a democracy, but it's taken a contentious turn this time around. There's a lot of angry people out there, and this is happening around the country. This is the time of the year when Congress is off, and so a lot of Congress members use the opportunity to go back home and to have these town hall meetings. And there have been several examples of people organizing and going. And so it's really pretty much of a liberal conservative thing, maybe an ultra liberal, and I think it's really increased by the age of the Facebook, that people can turn out crowds with Facebooks instantly,
sure.
and they can mold political ideas quickly at the same time too, and so that seems to be happening. And of course, it's not unusual for people to have differences of opinions at town hall meetings, but the one that Cassidy faced wasn't even about an exchange of ideas. It was just people shouting down, even as far as with the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, and when Cassidy said he was late because he was going to inspect the tornado the damage, they booed that too. Said you should have done that already. So this was a group that was in a bad mood, and they're talking about Trump. They don't trust anybody in the Trump administration. They're concerned about the loss of Obamacare. So this is that other voice in the community. Now, who these people are, how well organized they are. A lot of people say, these are people that you can kind of tap into to go whenever there's some sort of an issue. And so we don't know much about who those people are.
Well, Errol, aren't these people the mirror image of the Tea Party folks who particularly organized in 2010 and turned the Congress from Democrat to Republican? And they're mirroring a lot of the same tactics. And the thing that is sort of interesting to me is that I bet a lot of the people on the left were decrying what the conservatives were doing and their intolerance back in 2010, and then it seems like they're using a lot of the same tactics today. And you sort of think down the road, how is government going to work whenever the other party is in power, people are going to act in these sorts of ways and try to stymie everything that they do.
Yeah, if you read some of the comments, there are some people who are saying, well, this is the way that liberals misbehave, and this is their strategy. But I think you can point to a lot of examples of situations where conservatives did that same sort of thing.
Yeah, they're following the Tea Party playbook from 2010.
Even in terms of the Cassidy campaign, I can tell you that some of the commenters who were defending Cassidy were pretty much outspoken, and it could be mean-spirited themselves, and all this is being fed by the internet.
Has this become the age of anger? Because you had the Trump people who were just angry at everything in Washington, and they wanted it all replaced. They said Trump's going to do that for them. Now you've got the people who were going to the meeting the other day, many of whom were worried that they are going to lose their health care, and they're equally angry, and everybody's just, we've become just a society where everybody's attacking everybody.
It could be, but I think about that because there have been so many times when the country's been so much worse off. I mean, actually, if you step back from all that and you look at the United States today, you look at the economy, you look at the opportunities that people have, the country's in pretty good shape. But yet all these people are mad and angry at each other. And I think it is just because you have more communications devices that are feeding this. Anyway, so what happened today with Steve Scalise, what he did, and some other Congress members have done this. Now, Scalise is a leader in the Republican Party, so he can't afford to be in the national news about having a town hall meeting in which people are booing and screaming at him. And so he did his by telephone, by conference call. And from one press account I read, it was pretty tame. There were like 10 people who called, and it was a normal discussion. But I think for the time being, this could be the beginning. But
what's the message to his constituents that he's not appearing in front of them? He's saying call in and maybe you'll get in.
Yeah, because Cassidy, he deserves credit for showing up.
He did several town halls, and he did. The Medley one was really contentious.
I think a lot of Scalise's constituents would be very sympathetic to Scalise on this, and if anything else, it probably strengthens him and it strengthens Trump.
Well,
because I think it angers a lot of people in the country too.
Definitely been an interesting week, and I guess we'll continue to see the anger, the division, and the expressions of opinions. Okay, over to Kathy. And we did see also that Whitney is going to be has purchased some FNBC branches, but Whitney has also announced they're closing some of their locations.
Yes, the announcement this week was about Whitney closing 10 locations. And of course, this follows closely on the heels of Whitney's previous announcement that they were purchasing 9 First NBC Bank locations, and which followed on regulatory pressure on First NBC to raise its capital and raise cash. So this was all about First NBC raising cash. And so what's happening with the closures, and these will come a little bit later, is that they're curing a redundancy that's going to occur by acquiring those branches from First NBC. Many of them are close to Whitney locations, within a mile or less. And so rather than having the overhead costs of running both of those branches, they're going to close some. And that's a normal thing to happen when you see acquisitions like this. The federal regulators approved this deal early this week, and it's expected to actually close in early March. So the actual deal will happen then. And of course, the depositors, Whitney's and First NBC depositors, will all be hearing about what's happening with their particular branch and that sort of thing. In the local area, this involves really 4 branches close in. There are 2 on Veterans Boulevard in Metairie. There's 1 on St. Charles Avenue. There's 1 in Tarrytown. And all of the rest of the ones that are being closed are in the outlying parishes. So as I said, depositors will hear more about that. An interesting thing that I think is occurring, though, is Whitney, which is owned by Hancock Holding in Mississippi, announced also that they are putting in, they didn't make, it was First NBC rather, made the announcement that they're putting in a new CEO in First NBC, and it's the retired CEO from Hancock Whitney. So this leads to the speculation that eventually there could be a complete takeover of First NBC by Whitney, because that CEO is going to be in there. He's going to be able to see what's inside the bank and see what's happening with it. And meanwhile, investors have seen their share prices just plunge as a result of First NBC's troubles.
So when do we see these branch changes, the closures?
Well, it'll probably start happening in March, because it's expected to close. The deal's expected to close in early March, so I doubt that they'll do anything before that.
Okay, we have to move on to the next segment right now. Thanks, Kathy. And we're moving over to Bill right now. And the word is it really true? You are going to retire? You've been in television forever, Bill, you and me.
42 years this coming May. But I had a big wake-up call in December. While people were watching the 12 for the road, I did it early this year because my primary care doctor saved my life. He does an EKG on me every year. And this year, he immediately spotted a very slight anomaly. Something was possibly going on with my heart. And of course, since we're in this business, she used to be my boss. She was the producer and I was the intern.
Long time ago.
That was the
years
beginning
ago.
of your heart
That's
trouble.
Probably so, because she was tough.
I'm sorry, Bill.
She made me learn. You were the best. But in true news fashion, I told the doctor, I said, I've got to get the 12th of the road done. We're committed to it. We cannot not do it. So it was right after Thanksgiving that I had an angiogram, and they found two arteries 90% blocked. As the cardiologist said, Bill, it's like I-10, the I-610 junction. I-10 is 90% blocked, and just below the junction, I-610 is 90% blocked.
Not
The surgeon was in my room 2 hours later. I had the surgery 10 days later.
Wow.
Scared to pieces of what they were going to do. It was incredible. It was 3.5 hours. I was in the recovery room, and 2 days later I was off pain meds, went home from the hospital, but it was a wake-up call.
So it was bypass surgery? Did you have to?
Heart bypass surgery. As he said, I asked him while he was holding my heart in his hands, did he notice any damage? And he said, no, we got to it beforehand. But it's still, all of the cardiologists, everybody looked at me and they said, you got to cut the stress. Well, in our business, if you look at
Is there any stress?
You have stress for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
When I first started going to that doctor, his question to me was, does your job have any stress? And I burst out laughing because every single day, stress is a major part of our lives. I just look at the tornado, the flood. Let's see. Tornado last March, flood in August, tornado this February, and that's just some of the major stories that we're covering, and it's extensive hours, intensive work. Got a great team at Channel 4.
And that's not even including your bosses.
Right, exactly. And meeting your deadlines, it's pretty stressful.
It's not the way I thought that my career would end, but I've been action reporter for over 30 years, and it's been an incredible ride.
So when are you going to step down?
1 week from today.
In just 1 week.
Yep.
Well, what are we going to do without our action reporter? And I mean, you have helped, over those 30 years, you have helped untold number of people.
We've
I was
got
out
to get
along the
those
Endymion Parade route today.
Yes, I know, really. We have to get a lot done in this next week.
I was working on one today.
You
Got
have
the surgeon
people calling
board.
you for help even after you retire.
Yes, that's what the phone operators are worried about. But I've done some incredible things. There's so many memories that I have, and if you're going to ask me what is my favorite one, I've done so many thousands of stories over the years. I can't tell you what a favorite story is. I just have so many memories of things when we went to El Salvador after the earthquake down there, and the Salvadoran community here used our reports, and they raised enough money to build a town. They built 80 homes. They were little homes, but they were better than anything in the Salvadoran community. We went to Washington, D.C. with the World War II veterans, which was absolutely incredible. I'm still working as they finish rebuilding the PT boat, which is just going to be an incredible thing. Cough up $300, it's going to be a ride you'll never forget when they start in April.
Well, you reported on so much, and as I said, you've helped so many people, and all I can just keep remembering is the looks on the faces of folks that you have helped with whatever it was, whether they were in financial need, something regarding their health, their house. You just helped so many.
He really
so
made
thank
a
you.
difference, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He made just a real personal, first-hand difference over all
Tuesday, I
these
was out in
years.
the tornado zone with a gentleman who is still trying to process that he almost lost his house again. The week before, I'm on the second floor in the bedroom of a lady who was in her house when the tornado hit, and there's no walls. She was in that room, and she's looking at me like, what do I do now? You know?
Yeah,
we
that's
went through that after
incredible
Katrina.
stuff.
We weren't supposed to go through that again.
Yeah.
So it's been incredibly challenging, but also incredibly fulfilling, because this is the best town in the world to
It's
work
a great
with.
news town,
People
yeah.
are well, it's not just a great news town, but people are so good here. They reach out, they help. You know, I've done lost dog stories. People search the city all night long. They find that dog.
You probably
Well-
you may have come into contact with ordinary citizens more than any other reporter in
Yeah.
the course of your work.
But that's the fun. I have covered the Pope. I've covered, my first president was Nixon. My last president was Obama. I have not covered President Trump, and I'm guessing I won't at this point. But it's the ordinary people whose stories I've had the privilege of telling that they are the most amazing
And
things.
we've been lucky to have you out there telling him, helping.
Thank you,
best
Kim.
But I know you're not fading away. You're going to be out there. We're going to hear Bill's voice somewhere again. I know. Thanks,
Bill,
Bill.
did you develop that great voice naturally? I mean, you've had one of the great
I went to
TV
the voice store. You haven't been there yet?
You've got one of the great TV voices.
He does. He has
know,
just a gorgeous voice.
Well, thank you, but it just, I don't know.
As long as I can remember, that voice has been there, even when he was a young man, just a
It will
whippersnapper in
change
his
in a
20s.
week.
Okay, I got to get over to Kathy right now real quick because we don't have much time left for this segment, I'm afraid. But Popeyes is going to be purchased by a Burger King parent company,
Yes,
right?
that's right, for $1.8 billion. And you
Wow.
can just imagine, Al Copeland, of course, is no longer with us,
Yeah.
but can you just imagine his reaction if he were around and could see that
From his
figure?
little Arabi shop to 1.8 billion.
Yes, because he started Popeyes in Arabi,
Right.
and it was called Chicken on the Run.
Because it
not
was donuts
Popeyes.
too, wasn't he? I think he was selling donuts at
But
that shop
the
as well.
concept didn't work well, and within a year he rebranded it to Popeyes, named after Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, the movie The French Connection. So it's been. But now Al did sell the company in 1992, I believe it was, to AFC Enterprises, which also bought Church's Chicken, and so they built it up a lot more. And today the company has 2,000 locations worldwide, 1,600 in the United States. So it's a huge deal, and it's not our little fried chicken chain anymore, certainly.
Well, the seasonings are
But
still made here. The
Right.
Copeland family.
Yeah, and they've sold.
They were
yeah.
very smart not to change the recipes, and people sometimes complain about our spicy food down here, but they all eat it.
Well, and they sold those recipes at one point for like $43 million. So
Right, not too terribly, just a few years or so
Yes.
ago. And did they sell the red bean recipe too? That's such a wonderful recipe. That was from Warren LaRue.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know
That
about
was
that.
Warren LaRue's recipe. So now, are they looking now to just have more of an international exposure, do you think?
I'm
with this
sure
sale?
they'll just continue to build it, and especially with all of the background. This company, the company that bought them, owns Burger King and a Canadian chain called Tim Hortons. And both, of course, are huge. And so what you've got behind you is a lot more capital, a lot more.
There doesn't seem to be as
Expansive
many
power.
local Popeyes as there used to be.
I don't know.
That's just my own observation. It seemed to be, maybe you had too many. In those early days, they were all over the place.
Well, I think,
that phase.
I think some of that occurred after AFC Enterprises bought them, and I believe that was an Atlanta-based firm. And I think you're right. I think they did. Some of those locals did disappear.
Probably
But we-
some didn't come back after Katrina, too.
And some
that,
didn't
that
come
changed
back,
the
probably
landscape
some.
And then
so
they
much.
changed the name to Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen.
But
I
we
think
still
it is,
have our
but-
Popeyes out there, and you can't have Mardi Gras without Popeyes. I mean,
But
it
it
just goes hand in hand.
shows you the
Okay.
value of a brand. That name is still very
Right.
strong.
Absolutely. Okay, and speaking about Mardi Gras, we're in the thick of it now. Errol, tell us about this satirical cruise.
As we're speaking right now, one of the great satirical parades, the Crew d'Etat, is parading. Last night was the Crew of Chaos, which is a descendant of the old Crew of Momus, which had a satirical heritage. And so there have been two back-to-back satirical parades. We wanted to show you some illustrations from some of the floats. This is Crew d'Etat, that their theme is about the zoo. This is Mike Guinea is being heavily satirized this time, and I can't go into all the details on this, but it's a wicked float if you happen to see it. He was also satirized by in the Chaos Parade. Let's move on here. This is the 101 Chalmatians. This is about Sidney Torres. And and you're talking about the Popeyes heritage coming out of Chalmette, and like this is seen as the next great person coming out of Chalmette in the. Okay.
Out to pasture.
Out to pasture from coup d'etat.
Yeah. These were some of the people who were victims of the political election season. And I really like this because you have the media people who were wrong. Everybody's wrong. At the very end, you got this farmer and he says, y'all should listen to me. Because I think this is what we were talking about earlier there.
Next one.
Okay, this is about Irvin Mayfield, who's also satirized a good bit too, this time around with his New Orleans Jazz Orchestra and with the library.
The Library Foundation, right.
And here again, this is all the smart people in the election and how they were wrong about the election. Okay, this is Chaos. Chaos did a thing called Chaos in the Streets. And so they had different streets. And this is called Fleur de Lis, which is about when they fired all the assistant coaches, what Sean Payton did a few weeks ago. Desire Street, this is, I think this is Yinny again on this one right here.
24th Judicial District.
Yeah.
Food court.
Pirates Alley. This is the assessor. They're arguing, you keep on raising the taxes and more taxes, so it's like a pirate sort of thing. This is kind of a fun one. This is a satire on newspapers, and if newspapers were doing false news about parade crews, like Three Muses play out of tune. Anyway, it just makes fun of the other carnival organizations.
Okay, we have about 20 seconds left.
Okay, and then Music Street, and so this is Chaos's answer to Irving Mayfield. So Irving Mayfield and Mike Yinny probably run 1 and 2 in terms of most satirized among local people. I think Donald Trump wins by far, but they got the heaviest criticism this year.
All right, so Daytime runs tonight, rolls tonight, right?
It's rolling right now.
Okay, yes, right. Okay, looking ahead, Errol.
So after Mardi Gras, the day after, we have Ash Wednesday. Look at this, the latest concept in Ash Wednesday. This is the Mulholland Methodist Church on Metairie Road, and it has a sign up, which you'll see, okay, drive through Ashes.
It's hugely popular.
From 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Ash Wednesday, and somewhere it says off to the side you can get coffee if you want to. So a drive through Ashes stand.
All right, we'll be looking for that. Tyler.
Going back to the legislature and the governor, the big issue coming up is what tax plans or the programs the governor is going to support, because this is going to be an issue where taxes dominate when the legislature goes back into session on April 10.
Okay.
The hotel boom continues. We saw an application come this week for another one in right downtown on St. Charles Avenue, the 300 block, for a Residence Inn by Marriott.
Okay, yet another one, Bill.
And during Lent, you're looking for a good meal, the best meal in town, Chef's Charity for Children. It's on the 16th of March. It's $75. It's about a 10 or 11 course meal. Emerald, John Besh, John Foles, Leah Chase, incredible chefs, and they teach you how to cook too, and you get like an 80-page cookbook. It's quite an event, and it helps St. Michael's Special School. So
right. Very special cause, and it's always a good, fun event.
Yeah.
Best of luck to you. Hope to be seeing you, though, again soon. We'll miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a wonderful, happy, safe Mardi Gras. We'll see you again next week from Forum Sources. Have a good evening.
The firm of Bowen, McLeod & Britt helps both large corporations and small businesses with insurance, risk management, and employee benefits using the same values they've held true for over 30 years: knowledge, vision, accountability, and service. More information is at bmbinc.com.